Is that doing good? Okay. Hello, ladies. It's so nice to meet all three of you. Thank you for meeting with me.
Nice having us.
Okay, so introduce yourself so I know who's who.
Okay, so I'm Kelly. I'm Corine. I'm Leanne.
Nice to meet you all. And I may need help. I am sometimes bad. So if I call you the wrong name,
All good.
Bear with me. So we're here to discuss haunted gold rush, which is I'm super excited. When Melissa said, hey, I just want to give you an FYI, there's this show coming out and it's kind of on the down low right now, but it's three ladies. I was like, it's about effing time. Like,
Awesome.
So congratulations. And I guess I just wanted to start really quick. Oops, wait, I want to see you and read this. So it's a 2-part documentary that explores the ghostly mysteries along British Columbia's historic Gold Rush Trail, told through the eyes of a strong female force of paranormal investigators. You guys!
Yeah, no, we're super excited about it. It airs on T&E on the 30th. And they're doing the 2 parts back to back. So they're both the night of the 30th.
Yeah. Oh, so people can just binge.
Absolutely. Binge it.
Fantastic. So 2-part, that was the other thing. I was doing some research about the haunted Gold Rush Trail, but then I realized, oh my gosh, this Gold Rush Trail is an actual area with a website and everything. And it begins at the mouth of the Fraser River. Am I saying that right?
Fraser.
Fraser. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And that's in New Westminster.
Yes. Yeah.
And then it winds its way north to Barkerville Historic Town and Park. Yeah. Okay. And is that where you guys started, like down in there, or did you just hit? What happened?
So we actually jumped on the trail. So the trail itself does start in New Westminster in British Columbia. And the first kind of stop after New West was Yale. So we ended up in Yale. And from there, where the steamboats would take the tens of thousands of miners who would come from all over the world during the gold rush era in the 1800s, they would take the steamboat to Yale. And so Yale was our starting point. And from there, we drove north into the interior of BC to the town of Barkerville. And we stopped along all the locations along the Fraser Canyon up the old Caribou Gold Rush Trail itself.
That's fantastic. So one thing I didn't find, though, on this goldrushtrail.ca site was ghost stories, which I was sort of surprised. They have everything like hiking and biking and fishing and wildlife and antiquing. I was like, well, wait a second. So that's what makes this, what you guys are doing, more exciting, because you get to tell the tales. But since you're also paranormal investigators, do we see you all ghost hunting too?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes. Yes. So where do we want to go with that then?
Do you want to know how this all started?
Yes, please.
Okay. So, yeah. Okay, so these 2 are sisters.
Oh!
I'm the best friend. So we have our own paranormal investigation company called Beyond the Haunting Investigation. So we do investigations in people's homes and businesses, locally and internationally. So we go in, basically help them figure out, is it haunted? What is it? So do you want to take over? Yeah, it kind of all started with Corine, how this dynamic started. So
we'll take you back a little.
Are you okay with that?
Yes.
Go back, yeah. So when I was as young as 3 or 4 years old, I was having experiences that weren't explainable. I remember being in a car accident with my grandmother, and in this car accident, she was unconscious, and there was this man talking to me and standing there telling me it was going to be okay. And I would see him later that night and, moving forward. And from that point on, I was always seeing things, hearing them communicate with me and giving messages where, as a kid, you're terrified. Who is this? And your parents are telling you, well, there's nothing there. There's no one there. Go back to bed. It's your imaginary friend. It's in your head. It's fine. So as a kid, I suppressed a lot of that. And, over the years, your parents, for obvious reasons to be concerned, had me tested for various things. And when everything came back completely fine, I'm like, okay, well, I know the looks I get, so I'm just not going to say anything. And then, you know, as I got older, I had other experiences that kind of showed where, you know, this is real. Those messages came true. I'm not, you know, insane. This is something. This is legit and real. But then when Leanne got older and I'm seeing something, and she's watching it, and I'm like, whoa,
you could see it too.
So we shared a room as kids, and when Corine started having these experiences, I watched her having them, and then I, from a young age, had my first, like, I saw something, and I was like, yes, game on, I am all into this. I never suppressed it. I was always just wanting more, like reading, watching. Where Corine like kept it on the down low. Everyone in my life knew I was into it. And so we'd start doing like kind of investigations and different things too. And so it was natural Kelly came into the fold.
Yeah, so I met Leanne in high school. We played volleyball together. And so growing up, we didn't talk about any of this stuff. My family wasn't into ghosts, paranormal, any of that sort of thing. They were sort of closed off when it came to that, which was fine. But when I met Leanne, she started talking about topics that I had never really heard of. I didn't know any of this stuff sort of existed, you know. It was like the physical is what it is, and anything beyond that doesn't exist. So it sort of went in one ear and out the other for a while. But the more she talked about it, I feel like the jar on the lids kind of loosened a little bit and it started to go in. And then I started to think like, okay, what is she talking about? And of course the like judgmental talk that I had grown up with was kind of like, oh, she's kind of like odd, but okay. And then I would hang out at their house, and then then it was kind of like Leanne experiencing things with her sister. So then I started to see what was going on, and it was kind of undeniable, you know, when you're present with something and somebody sees something or gets a message and it's true, you can't deny that. You can't say, no, this isn't real. Like I saw it with my own eyes. So then I started to go into haunted locations with them. And I was just still an observer, just watching, not saying anything. And it was just so powerful. And so I started to notice in myself that I was feeling things too, but I'd never really, I guess I turned it off as a child. So when I started to lean into that, I started to see and say, I would say what was going on, and they would go, oh, me too. I have that splitting pain in my right side. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you do? Or I would have like an image or a vision, and I would say that to them, and they would say, oh, wow, is it a man that's blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, oh my gosh. And the more we talked about it, the more I realized as a child, I did have this, but I had turned it off, or I was just unaware of the strategies and things that I was doing. Like if I lost an object, I turned my mind off and I would see it in my mind's eye where it was, and then I would go find it. But as a kid, you just kind of do it and you don't think about it. Or like seeing my dog who had already died show up in my doorway, but I don't know he's dead because my parents just say he's gone away, and then he's there, but nobody wants to talk about it, right? So now when I'm hooked up with these two, it's just like ripped the lid off of this, and it's just so exciting now. I feel like I've just opened up to this whole new world.
Well, and like, yeah, the three of us, like, okay, so we all have abilities, but different abilities, and very complementary.
Mm-hmm.
And so with our like personal dynamic too, it's like something people have never seen this. Like, so not only is Haunted Gold Rush, like no one's done the history from a paranormal lens, no one's done this.
Yeah.
That's awesome, because you see the friendship sometimes, but you don't. This story is extremely unique, so that's really exciting. I'm glad you guys said, because I didn't even go there. I was like all about the show, and I was like, well, dang it, I should have had like a prepared. So tell me about yourselves. But you guys covered me, so thank you.
Well, I think that's the whole point. Like our whole history of who we are and our abilities has led us to, as an adult, forming our company, like Kelly said, and then getting into this, and now doing Haunted Gold Rush, and realizing that, you know, there's dozens of locations along that trail that have had ghost stories. And if you think about it too, back in the 1800s, it was it was a booming time for the gold rush. It was often wild, it was often violent, lawless. So, you know, when all of that happened, you're like, wow, the history alone. But then think about the last few years, right? We've had a pandemic. We've had fires where towns were wiped off
Oh.
in British Columbia.
Yeah, along the Gold Rush
Along
Trail.
the trail.
It's been devastating.
Like the floods, the road washouts.
Oh
like
yeah, it's like
Yeah.
wild.
the Fraser River itself,
The canyon.
the canyon has had so much water and so much flooding. Like we know that water acts as a conduit for energy. And with all of this natural disaster stuff on top of a global pandemic, we question like what's been unearthed? Why are all of a sudden we're now getting these calls? Because we have this intense paranormal activity that's spiking along all these locations along the trail. So when
Oh,
people
wow.
call us, we're like, what could that be? What is it? And so we had to go. We had to investigate and find out what it was.
And is that part of the show that like somebody called and said, hey, we're having activity here, and then you guys are going and
Yeah.
checking that out?
Yeah, like the documentary all kind of started when we started getting calls from all these various locations about, like this is happening, it's increasing, it's more intense. Can you come in and check it out? And so we paired up with Small Army Entertainment, our executive producer, Sean DeVries.
Yeah, he did the Bachelor Canada.
He was like, yeah, let's go.
right?
Which didn't prepare him for this
At all.
Oh my god.
Totally different.
Sean's mind was blown, and he's actually made a comment before about like people on the cruise slowly just become believers the more time they spend with us. It's, it's like
Primo to like all of a sudden get
There's
our
a-
sound guy, or like not even.
one of
we'll
our-
tell them.
at a coffee shop. She just starts reading one of the producers.
And I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't have my coffee right now. There's some lady here. Can we talk? And I'm like, this is her name. Like, this is what I'm seeing. Does this make sense? And one of our producers were like, yes. So I'm like, oh, okay, good. So we're good. Let's move forward.
Yeah. And she pulled out this very random specific flower that like, when you put dye into a glass and it goes up into the flower?
Oh yeah.
Makes no sense. I'm seeing a carnation with like blue dye. And the woman's like, oh my gosh, yes!
And that totally made sense to her.
But when information comes through, you just have to say it, because like we see what we see. It's real for us, and like we're not just making stuff up. When we say things, we're only saying it because it's 100% real for us. And so if it means something to somebody, or we can identify, in Haunted Gold Rush, if you have you seen part of
I didn't see any clips yet. No.
all right, it's like there's some locations in there that we're going in to look for a specific spirit or entity, and we go in there and we're like, wow, okay, but who's that?
Something else.
So like you'll have to watch the doc, but like in almost every location that was kind of the thing. Like you go in expecting this, and then this happens. It's also validated and confirmed, and you're like, what? So,
and you know what's so cool is like along the Gold Rush Trail, like you visited the website, right? So you've seen like a bit of the history. Going in through with a paranormal lens, it's honestly, you're just like immersed in the history. You're literally walking with history. It's so wild. And then the communication and the connection that you get with these spirits when they can share their stories with you or give you a tidbit of history that isn't in the books. Like, of course, right, we hear certain voices on paper, but we are literally connecting with these spirits. It's just wild.
Yeah, like it might have been 100 years ago, but for us in that moment, it's right then. Like it is happening right now.
Oh my goodness, that sounds so exciting. But I have to ask, there's a lot of ghosts, but is there any other like hunting true crimes or UFO or Bigfoot sightings or anything like that that's part of the documentary, or is it you have to watch and see, Courtney?
I definitely have to watch and see.
Yeah.
This one for sure was focused more on the the untold stories, the history of the Gold Rush, and who could still be haunting the Gold Rush Trail. And so I think when you're looking at, there's so many things we could have gone into, but the calls were for these locations, and what happened in the history books. You hear about the people who wrote that history, right? Like Billy Barker from Barkerville. But what about all those miners that came up that didn't make it or strike it rich? And, the people that came from all over the world that, have stories to share. And, that's who we were trying to communicate with and see if they still had something to add to that historical narrative that we were trying to piece together.
That's so cool. And you guys were just open to it. So it wasn't that you had I mean, maybe you started with the preconceived, but then you went in. So that is super cool. I can't wait to watch. First of all, I love Canada. I have to say, we haven't been able to go up there, and like I think it's going on 3 or 4 years. Well, definitely since the pandemic. But so I'm so excited. I'm like all in. And then that it's you three, and now after meeting you, that's even
Cool.
cooler.
Yeah,
So,
it's nice.
girl crush. Sorry.
Well, thank you so much for taking time with me.
I just have one more question. Hopefully I have time. What was each of your favorite locations and or experiences while filming?
Every location had so many good moments.
Okay, so my favorite experience is the very end of the doc, because we were all drawn to a specific location, and it's just outside of Barkerville, and we didn't know why we were drawn there. Like none of us knew. We're like, oh, we gotta get there. And when we got there, it just clicked, and it was the biggest realization and powerful moment, I think, for us personally. So that was yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we get a bit vulnerable there.
Yeah.
Oh,
For me, I don't want to say specifically where it is, but or like which location, but sort of in the second episode or the second, is it episode?
Yeah.
There's a location where we're expecting something. Actually, in each one, it's like the expectation going in is always here. And then I feel like for me, it was always shifted based on what people were telling us ahead of time. Like you try not to have an idea when you go in, you try to be like completely open-minded. But when you hear the stories from people, it kind of makes you go in with a certain frame of mind or like a certain guardedness for certain locations. So I feel like when I go in, it's always so unexpected. I don't know. I can't pick one. They were all so different. I mean, just wait till you watch. It's so different each location.
Yeah, and I think for me, the big one, like the most memorable thing is when we're called in by a certain person for a certain claim.
Mm-hmm.
And when we were like, yeah, we have that experience plus this, and this also happened.
Yeah.
And then they're like, whoa, like we can actually validate that story. Are you serious? Like what? I think for me, it's like, yeah, this is real.
Mm-hmm.
And you're experiencing this. We saw it. You're not alone in this. And there's something going on. So to me, it's so validating when we can go in and be like, yeah, we actually have the same experience. Like you're not the only one having this. And to me, that's very powerful because I was that kid that never had that validation for so long, right? Until we got together and started doing this. So
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
that's awesome. Oh my goodness. You guys, thank you so much. And congratulations on the new show, Haunted Gold Rush, October 30th on TNE.
Yeah,
TNE.